So in my world, we talk a lot about feet, because if our feet don't work properly, well then nothing's going to work properly, essentially. Well, sorry, it's going to be difficult to work properly. You're going to have to do a lot of work. So we'll turn that foot out. We'll start to get you to understand. We'll rock you backwards, forwards from toes to heels to find out where that balance point is here. And as you start to move, you can see your bum's moved in already. And as it starts to move down, wants to move in even more. Okay. So then that'll change the contact point with the club face itself, which then means it's going to be interesting from there. Okay.
So much that can move, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. Interestingly enough, we'll, as I said, we'll talk about the dance move you've got going on here with your knees and your legs. But we'll talk about the pressure in your feet to stop that. So once again, it starts from the ground and works up. If we sit you on a swivel chair, take your arms out in front of you and ask you to rotate, your hips move the opposite way. So we're trying to use those ground forces, push yourself into the ground, create a nice little force coupling there that you don't have to try too hard, and then work from there. Okay. Now that's all relationship to your two big toes, to be honest. If you push your two big toes down about 20% into the ground, and your knees will switch out and be over your ankles a little bit more, and your bum will switch on, and you'll start to use the muscles that we want to use. So the arch of your foot raises up, and we start to get a really good grip on the ground. And then from there, it's just a balance thing. So then later on, we'll talk about your arm pattern, and the fact of the matter is, you know, is that a byproduct of your shoulder injury? Possibly, trying to protect it, but it's actually probably doing more harm than good where it is sitting there at the moment, where your right elbow is. It's going to sit down a little lower, and it'll sit in a little bit better place on your shoulder, because then we start seeing this golf club, and we talked about this travelling this way on the way through. That's a little bit of that cause. Yeah. From where that right elbow is, and then you don't rotate on the way through because you're scared of hitting it over here. Okay. And that, you know, that's a natural thing. And of course our brains think, oh, it's going over here, so I should hit it more out over here. And it creates it even more for all those reasons we talked about before. Okay. So let's get you moving properly first. This is, you know, as I said, I keep on saying, this is stuff that you can do. It's pretty simple stuff to do with, in regards to your students anyway. Basic fundamental movement patterns, getting them to understand where their feet are, and getting them, or allowing them to have a heightened awareness of where their bodies and what their bodies are doing. Ground up, always. But of course, forever and a day, when I first got my first video camera, it was like chocolates. It was something you sat on your shoulder. It was that big. It was, you know. But we talked a lot about what the club did, which seems logical. And then when you start to know more about it, it's so illogical. It's not funny, because it's the byproduct of what your body does. And then we started to measure, and start to do a lot more work with measuring. And now we're starting to get into wearable technology. You can have an iPhone, and you can have a wearable technology that's going to tell you what your golf swing does.
So they golf sense, that kind of stuff.
A bit more advanced than that, yeah. So we're talking about clothing.
That's insane.
Could be 10 or 15 years away, could be next year. You just never know how much money's going to get pumped into it. But certainly through my association with Nike, with shoes and things like that, there's been tests already done in force plates, essentially, but in your shoes, to know what your feet are doing. And then we're going to be talking about, you know, skins and or underlayers and things like that that'll have sensors in them. And away you go. You won't be able to get through an airport, but okay.